According to Reuters, Tesla is working on a revamped version of the Model 3, which could go into production as soon as the third quarter of 2023. Let's discuss some possible changes and improvements that Tesla could be making to the Model 3 with this revamp, and also talk about why this is a big deal. I'm John, and this is Cleanerwatt. The Model 3 has been available since 2017, and although the core of the vehicle is very similar to when it was first launched, Tesla has made several notable changes over the last several years, including range increases, a lithium iron phosphate battery option for the rear-wheel drive version, an AMD Ryzen processor upgrade, a heat pump, and also the somewhat recent interior refresh, to name a few. However, it seems like more significant changes could be coming next year to the Model 3, according to Reuters. According to this November 28th Reuters article, which Reuters claims they got this information from 4 people with knowledge of the effort, Tesla is reportedly working on a project they're calling Highland, which is a revamp of the Model 3. When it comes to some of the improvements and changes that Tesla could be making to the Model 3, this Reuters article goes on to talk about one of the possible changes is that Tesla may reduce the number of components and complexity in the interior of the Model 3. Of course, as you already know, the interior of the Model 3 is already very simple and clean. There's really not a lot of simplification that can happen. However, there are a few things that I believe are obvious changes that we should see in the future with the Model 3 interior. For instance, when Tesla moved to the newly refreshed Model S and Model X, they switched to a yoke steering wheel, which got rid of the stalks and replaced that with capacitive touch buttons built into the steering yoke itself. Now, while I don't expect the new Model 3 refresh to include a yoke steering wheel, I do believe Tesla will remove the stalks and replace it with a new steering wheel, a round, normal-shaped steering wheel, but with the capacitance buttons, very similar to what the Tesla Model S and X have, and also what it looks like the Tesla Semi is going to have as well. I believe this is a very strong possibility due to the language of that Reuters article about simplifying the interior. I believe that's one key way to simplify the interior and remove those stalks and build that into the steering wheel. But also this August 29th, 2022 article from Not a Tesla App, their website, they talk about here, according to Twitter user Chris Zhang001, who has ties with the Tesla supply chain in China, the Model 3 and the Model Y will be receiving a new steering wheel for the 2023 model year. As it sits right now, the Tesla Model 3 steering wheel does have 2 scroll wheel multi-function buttons, but you notice, like a normal car, it also has the stalks up above. As you can see here in images of the Tesla Semi, those functions have been incorporated into the steering wheel itself with the lit up capacitive buttons, which of course is a great simplification to the steering wheel. Since the interior of the Model 3 was recently refreshed, I don't expect that we'll see a significant change in design, but the steering wheel does make sense. There might be a few underneath the skin changes to simplify the interior, or maybe a small design tweak here or there, but I think the steering wheel is going to be the main change and the main simplification of this vehicle. And really, on that topic of the steering wheel, I also believe that with this change, Tesla could go to a steer-by-wire design instead of the mechanical linkage that they currently have with the Model 3. Once again, going back to the Not a Tesla App website, this article once again references a tweet from Chris Zhang, where Chris said, "Looks like Tesla will have steering by wire in 2023, at least the Model S and X." Now, obviously that tweet from Chris Zhang mentioned the Tesla Model S and X, but if Tesla is going to refresh the steering wheel of the Model 3 and try to move towards more simplicity, a steer-by-wire design would make a lot of sense. Now, on a surface level, it may not seem like that big of a change to go from a mechanical linkage right now to a steer-by-wire system, but there are some serious benefits not only to the consumer, but also to the manufacturing simplicity as well. Once again, going back to that Not a Tesla App article, Kevin, the author of this article, states, quote, "Taking the steering column out, which connects to the universal joint before getting to the rack and pinion system, would save some manufacturing time." To that, I would also add the fact that beyond saving time and really simplifying manufacturing, I believe this would also cost Tesla quite a bit less as well because it should require fewer parts for a steer-by-wire design. Now, when it comes to some of the benefits of a steer-by-wire design to the consumer, Kevin in this article once again mentions that if you have a steer-by-wire design that's not mechanically connected to the tires, you don't get the vibrations and the pull as you drive over uneven surfaces. In addition, Kevin goes on to mention another benefit of a steer-by-wire design, and that's a variable steering ratio. Now, that thought of a progressive steering ratio or a dynamic steering ratio is something that Everyday Astronaut brought up on Twitter in June of 2021, where he asked if that was possible with the yoke. And Elon Musk responded, "I've been driving with a yoke for a while, and it's great in my opinion. Progressive steering would require complex gearing or drive-by-wire without direct mechanical link. We'll aim for that in a few years." So it seems like Elon Musk was definitely hinting at the possibility of a steer-by-wire design in the future back in 2021. So I think that's a definite strong possibility of something we could see with a refresh of the Model 3. As a side note, once Tesla is actually able to achieve a fully autonomous vehicle, once they get the software to the point of where it needs to be, and they actually roll out robo-taxis. Of course, eventually a robo-taxi is not going to need a steering wheel. So moving to a steer-by-wire design would definitely be a huge step towards an eventual robo-taxi with no steering wheel. And it only makes sense to move to a new design for this refreshed Model 3 because that really paves the way for the removal of the steering wheel in the future. Now, beyond just interior changes, this Reuters article also mentioned the possibility of some changes to the Model 3's exterior and also powertrain performance. I personally don't believe that Tesla will make major exterior design changes to the Model 3 because that really complicates manufacturing and they're into simplification here. There might be a few small tweaks, but I don't think that's what is going to change. What I do believe is going to change is I think there's a strong possibility that Tesla could start incorporating the front and rear mega castings into the Model 3, which would of course greatly improve the manufacturing efficiency of the Model 3. As Tesla has demonstrated multiple times, including in their Q1 2022 investors update letter, the Model 3 front and rear underbody structure is made up of 171 individual metal pieces that have to be connected together. Whereas with the new Model Y with the front and rear mega castings, these have been turned into 2 pieces of metal. Beyond just having fewer pieces, Tesla also mentions here that it has greater than 1,600 fewer welds with this new design. If Tesla does indeed make this move to the front and rear castings for the Model 3 like they do with the Model Y, this could also pave the way for a future structural pack version of the Model 3, which would make sense in the future as Tesla ramps up their 4680 battery production. This seems like a logical next step. This topic of mega castings and manufacturing simplicity is actually something that Sandy Munro brought up when he interviewed Elon Musk in February of 2021. And Elon Musk mentioned in this interview that when they moved to the rear body casting, Tesla was able to eliminate 300 robots. He also mentioned that going to the front body casting would once again get rid of another 300 robots. In this interview, Sandy Munro also brought up the question of really whether or not Tesla would move to underbody castings for the Model 3, and Elon Musk said the following. I mean, at some point, we will probably switch to a single piece casting, talking about for the Model 3, but I think we need to get probably the Texas factory and the Berlin factory going. It's hard to change the wheels on a bus when it's going 80 miles an hour down the highway. He then reiterated, we just need basically an option to kind of redo the factory without blowing up the cash flow of the company. When I heard that, that made me think of when Tesla refreshed the Model S and the Model X. Of course, ramping that production back up, even for the lower volume car, a lower volume car like the Model S and a lower volume car like the Model X, it took Tesla a bit to work out all the kinks and re-ramp up those vehicles. And that could cause serious problems if Tesla takes a long time to ramp up a refreshed version of the Model 3, because the Model 3 is a significant part of their sales and a significant part of their revenue. But now that Tesla not only has their Fremont factory, but also Berlin, Texas, and Shanghai, those 4 different factories, I believe this gives Tesla the ability to ramp up the production of a revamped model while they keep the standard processes going at other factories. Now, when it comes to when these changes might happen and at what factories Tesla would make these changes, this article mentions that this new revamped Model 3 would go into production at their Shanghai and Fremont, California factories, and also that Tesla's Shanghai Gigafactory will put the redesigned Model 3 into production in the third quarter of 2023. Now, it is important to note that this is still speculation, and while this does come from a very reliable news source, Reuters, Reuters could be wrong on this. However, it does seem to line up with a lot of things as I've been talking about, and it does seem to make a lot of sense. Now, when it comes to why this matters and how this is significant to Tesla, if Tesla is able to reduce the complexity of manufacturing the Model 3, this allows the vehicle to be cheaper to produce, which gives them more flexibility with rising inflation and a rising raw materials cost. And if it costs less to produce the Model 3 because of reduced complexity, this gives Tesla the ability to reduce the price of the Model 3 if the market demands it, and they could still maintain a healthy profit margin. It also makes sense for Tesla to move to a more simplified design and kind of get that perfected here with the Model 3, because when they bring out the cheaper, compact, so-called $25,000 Tesla, which may not actually be $25,000 when it comes out, but the cheaper, compact Tesla, when that comes out, it will be nice if they've already worked out those technologies in the Model 3, for instance. Kind of like how Tesla worked out a lot of the details with the Plaid powertrain, which we'll see in the Cybertruck. When it comes to profit margin, as Zachary Kirkhorn pointed out in the Q4 2021 conference call, the Model Y is a vehicle that carries a higher profit than the Model 3. And if that was true in late 2021 and into early 2022, I imagine that it's even more so now. The Model 3 is more profitable than the Model 3. And I believe that comes down to the simplification of manufacturing as compared to the Model 3. It only makes sense to bring the Model 3 up to par with that simplification of manufacturing as well. On the topic of profit margin, this Reuters article also highlights the fact that, quote, in the third quarter, Tesla made a profit of just over $9,500 for every car sold, compared to roughly $1,300 for Toyota. Now, going back to the Sandy Munro interview of Elon Musk in February of 2021, if Tesla is able to remove 600 robots from a factory by moving to their front and rear mega casting, that could allow their Fremont, California factory, which currently builds the Model 3s that are sold in North America, that could allow that factory to have more space to build more Model 3s. According to Tesla's Q3 2022 investors update letter, currently right now, the Fremont factory has the capacity to build 550,000 Model 3s and Model Ys. Tesla, of course, doesn't talk about what that split is between Model 3s and Model Ys, but I imagine that that number will go up if Tesla can move to the rear underbody castings for the Model 3 as well, because once again, removing 600 robots from a factory floor space makes room for a lot more capacity. If this rumor is true, this could further improve Tesla's manufacturing advantage over the competition and give Tesla much more price flexibility should the market demand it, allowing Tesla to drop prices if necessary and still maintain healthy profit margins to continue their rapid growth and profitability. Do let me know what you think about all this in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from you. And if there are some changes that you know about coming that I didn't mention in the video, or some possible changes that you think might come, mention those in the comments section below as well. I'd also like to take a moment to thank the Patreon supporters who support me every month and help make this content possible. A special thank you to my performance supporters and also the other supporters listed on the screen. If you'd like to find out more about the Patreon community I've set up, I'll put a link in the video description. Thank you so much.